the book of Revelation and the wars and the rumors of wars are happening in real time all around us. As we read the headlines, don't read the body copy though, because they're not telling you the truth. But as we read the headlines, we could read the book of Revelation and it literally could align perfectly. Now, I want you all to be very aware that there is a propaganda machine working overtime trying to get all of us to believe what's called the approved narrative. Whatever is not true is what they want us to believe. That happens everywhere all the time. Just look at what's happening on the college campuses. Okay, we know what's happening. And when the Bible said what was right will be considered wrong. What was black is now white. What is approved is now unapproved. Everything that we know is true is now considered evil, wicked, and must be protested against. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of background about what's happening, but we're not going to do it in like a lot of people are doing. Angela and I, we're trying to stay up to date at all times with the headlines and the news stories and what's happening next. Where is Israel with their campaign? What are the college campuses doing and saying? Why are they saying it? We know why. Because they hate God. They hate God's people. And so therefore, a demonic, and I use my words very carefully. This is not hyperbolic or even a drive-by. I didn't mean to say that. So I'm going to let you know that. A demonic oppression is over the education establishments because it's a pressure cooker for indoctrination. So please be aware that spirit of deception is everywhere. There is a spirit of deception and propaganda that's happening right now in the media, in Hollywood, the actors, many athletes, the politicians. It's amazing. And even down to they have, let's just say, they don't understand the reality of what they're doing. That's how I know, that's how we all know that, and again, I never want to say anything negative about an individual, but I'll say this, many of them are making themselves pawns in the hands of Satan himself. In other words, if they used wisdom, they would know that if it said LGBT or trans for Hamas, they know that does not fit together because Hamas would kill them first. They would throw them off the building as they have many times. They are the least tolerant. And yet, the most tolerant are saying, we're for Hamas. Oh, you have no idea what you're talking about. You are so far from reality. But they say, we just want to make ourselves puppets and pawns for what's ever happening. So what we're going to do, as you can tell, we never talk politics. What we're going to do today, I'm going to show you and hopefully turn the lights on so that we have what's called a template or a principle that we could align next to the news, next to the media, next to what we're hearing, so that it's always the plumb line, so that we could try to dispute all the nonsense that's going on. But do we really need to do that? What we need to do is know the truth. And the truth, aligned with everything else, will show how far away it really is. So we need to ask ourselves, what in the world is going on? Here's what we need to know. In the entire world, there's a little tiny sliver of property called Israel. And if I didn't circle it, many of us would never even be able to find it, let alone see it. It is such a small sliver of property that you could align New Jersey and overlap it to see how the square miles of how small Israel really is. And yet the vast majority of what you see here is Muslim-controlled property. And all they focus in on is one small sliver. Why? Because that's God's people, that's God's land. He called it the Holy Land, and we need to know that. So we're going to go back and discuss what really happened. Where did the name Palestine even come from? What is its origins? And again, I'm going to do it quickly. Here's what we need to know. First and foremost, The Hebrew word Pelesheth, refers to the region along the South Mediterranean coast of Israel. This sliver right here is what's called the Gaza Strip. This sliver right here is the Gaza Strip. So what is Pelesheth? What is it? Well, let's back up all the way before Abraham. What happened? There was a Greek, keep in mind, we need to differentiate. There's a Greek island of Crete, making those residents Greek. That's important. They sailed from Crete and landed in this region, and they are the Philistines. The Philistines are not Arabs. Many people in the movies and in books, they always have these Arab-looking Philistines with these curved swords. What that tells me is they didn't do research. It is known, it is proven. And now a lot of you have read the book, King of War. I wrote the book. Took 14 years to write it. And as a matter of fact, Ryan, you said, he came over to me and goes, I have a word to pick or a bone to pick with you. You kept me up till 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, how did I do that? He said, I was finishing your book. And James, how many times did you even read it? What are you up to? 37 times he's read the book. What that means is I spent over a decade studying the Philistines, studying what are their origins, where did they come from. This is not just a passive understanding. When we went to Israel and we were talking to the experts and we were discussing these issues with the archaeologists, they knew for a fact that an archaeological dig of Gaza, of Gath, of Escalon, you would think that you're doing an archaeological dig in an island of Greece. Because they kept their style, they kept the pottery the same. Even after hundreds and hundreds of years, they kept the look of what they did was very similar. So think about this. When King Saul was going up against the Philistines, many people think that they're going up against Arabs with the curved swords. No, they were going up against what resembled more Spartans. And for everyone who saw 300, you're thinking, wow, leather diapers. No. What happened was these were warriors from birth. The Greeks knew how to fight. They lived for the battle. So when somebody says that this region is Arab, what their lack of knowledge is connecting dots that does not exist. This was originally Greek territory, not Arab territory. Now, what does that even mean? Okay. Names of the regions throughout history. It was not called Palestine. It was called Canaan. When Abraham was going through the land of Canaan, not Palestine, they will tell you it's Palestine. The media will tell you it's Palestine. It was never called Palestine until after Christ. They were referring to something else. And what was this something else? The something else was Philistia. There's 5 cities of the Philistines, and it was known as Philistia, and Palestine is a variation of Philistia. They're referring to the Philistines when they say Palestine. It was something as an insult to the Jews, and it happened in 136 AD. We're going to get to that. So then from there, when Moses left in the Exodus, he sent the 12 spies into, not Palestine, into Canaan. And they came back with a report saying the land is filled with giants, the Nephilim. And of course, the fear of the people were there. And they said, we can't go in. So then God was very upset that they lost faith and said, this entire generation will die. 40 years you'll wander in the desert. And nobody under the age of 20, I should say this, everybody over the age of 20 will die. And Moses was the last person to die. Moses himself could not see the promised land. So what happened? Then it was time to go in, not to Palestine, but to Canaan. So what happened is Abraham, let's back it up. Abraham was first, his original name was Abram, became Abraham. Sarai became Sarah. Then there's somebody named Hagar. And then Hagar slept with Abraham, at the time was Abram, and gave birth to Ishmael. What happened here? Ishmael is the grandfather, the father of all the Arabs. It was a birth out of being outside of the covenant of God. God said to Abraham, you will be the father of many nations, and through you will come the Messiah. Satan heard this and immediately went to war with strategy. He knew that God told Abraham, this entire land will be yours. Oh yeah? Well then immediately he dispatched every demon to go to war for that land. Whatever God says, he does the opposite. He is the Antichrist. He is the upside down world, bizarro world. Everything is wrong and upside down. In Genesis chapter 16, so that after Abraham had lived 10 years in the what? The land of Canaan. It specifically refers to Canaan. But I'm going to show you something that the Encyclopedia Britannica did. They are rewriting history. They are rewriting everything and saying that it's always been called Palestine. And so when the college students are told by their leftist woke professors, this has always been the land of the Palestinians, and they're like, well, I'm going to look this up. And they look up the Encyclopedia Britannica, and there it is, right? Clear as day. They did just the same way they did with everything in American history. They rewrote it. And now it gave the infrastructure for the rebellion. Okay, Genesis 16, 11 through 12. You shall call his name Ishmael. Now think about Hamas today when you're watching them going through and killing and destroying, burning infants and toddlers and cutting their heads off. It says in Genesis chapter 16, the first book of the Bible, as we're focusing in on the last book, Revelation, everything starts in Genesis. If you believe Genesis is an allegory and not true, you cannot understand the rest of the Bible. You won't even understand why Christ died on the cross if you don't fully believe every word of Genesis. You have to know that. So if you're in that school or that train of thought, we need to revisit that for you, and I want to just challenge you to reconsider that. I believe Genesis, every word of it, as true, inspired word of God, and actual historically accurate. You have to know that. And if you don't, then I just want to challenge you and just say, then your understanding of why Christ even died on the cross will be hindered. You will not comprehend it at the level you need to fully appreciate what actually happened. Okay, it says in Genesis chapter 16, verse 12, he, Ishmael, shall be a wild donkey of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. He will be at war at all times. But then it even says, and he shall dwell over and against all his kinsmen. All the other Arabs are all going to war nonstop. It'll be factions and it'll be nonstop. In Genesis 15, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham saying, to your descendants I have given this land. So we backed up one chapter so you could see what exactly is happening and why Satan is so focused. Satan was there. He heard this. He literally was saying, get over here. Okay, here's our game plan. Things have changed. He says, to your descendants I have given this land. All of it. So when people say, no, the Hebrews, the Israelites, or Israel has only been around since 1947, this is 4,000 years ago. The creator of the land gave it to Abraham. From the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates. In other words, the entire thing. And just for the record, we have not seen the full fulfillment of that prophecy yet. After the Exodus, God brought the descendants of Israel, or Jacob. Jacob, his name was changed to Israel. He had 12 children. They were in Egypt for 400 years. It goes on to say, into the land he had promised to Abraham. The promise was made, but the fulfillment was good to take place 400 years later. Or actually much more than that. It was almost 800 years later. It goes on to say, Moses, this is what he said to Joshua. The very first words in Joshua chapter 1, verse 1. Moses is dead. Now get up. He says that to Joshua. Literally, it's like, okay, mission accomplished. Everybody over the age of 20 is dead, except for 2 people. Who knows what their names are? Joshua and Caleb. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over to Jordan, you and all the people, to the land which I am giving to them, the children of Israel. 3,300 years ago. Let's continue. Prior to AD 135, what does that mean? Israel was destroyed in 70 AD, especially Jerusalem with the temple. No, Jesus said not one stone will be left upon another. Then there was what's called a faction of guerrilla warriors that were always trying to infiltrate and fight back. They were the zealots. Rome does not take very kindly to the zealots. So what was it? Not 70 AD, almost like 60, 70 years later after that, in AD 135. They took the word Philistia, the Philistines, and mocked the Jews with it. It goes on to say the Romans called the land of Israel Judea and Galilee. That's important because it was not called Palestine. They called it themselves Judea and Galilee. Jesus himself said, and went across the land of Judea. Goes on to say, that changed when Roman Emperor Hadrian brutally suppressed the Jewish resistance movement and occupied Judea. Then, in 135 AD, the Romans began calling the land Syria Palestina, which is after the 2 main enemies of Israel, Syria and Philistia. And it eventually became known as Palestine. So I want to make sure that we understand that going into what's going to happen tomorrow and later today and throughout the rest of the weeks with Israel. We need to know that the original Philistines were Greek. Now, just for the record, everything you see is red is Muslim. And that little tiny sliver that you see, that is Israel. This right here, you could barely see it, is Israel. And everything is focused on that. And what they are demanding Israel do is cede land to them. And they could go anywhere. There's plenty of property everywhere for all of them. But they don't want that. They don't want that. They don't want peace. They want to use their people to protect their bombs. While Israel says our bombs are to protect our people, Hamas says our people protect our bombs. That's why we put our missile sites at hospitals and at schools. See, they are terrorists and they love death. They love death. So literally, just to give you a better idea, Iran is sponsoring everything. And let's just say we, America, your tax dollars, are sponsoring Iran. Thank you for giving until it hurts. Every last one of us are giving money into the billions upon billions of dollars to Iran, who then funnel their money to destroy Israel. This right here is what's called the Gaza Strip. Now, Gaza, this is what we need to know. Let's go back to the days of the Philistines. There's 5 cities. There's Gaza, Ascalon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath. I was traveling this past week. I was in San Antonio, Texas, and there were a couple Americans there too. It was very nice. And I think I included made about 7 or 8. I lost count after 5. But anyways, I was watching on the television, and they said, we're going to go live now to Ascalon. All the names are still the same. When Angela and I went to Israel, and many of you who went to Israel know this, or at least hopefully you saw this, there are street signs that say Ascalon, so many miles. Gath, they're all still called the same. And this is the 5 cities of Philistia, now called Palestine. Notice, however, the enemies of Israel, that I would have to say, in my opinion, from studying this, when they came over, Satan directed them where to go. They're still there. They changed the people, changed the people groups, changed the names, kind of kept the names the same, different groups of people. Now it's Arab, before it was Greek. The whole purpose is to destroy Israel. Satan is a one-track mind. Destroy the work of God, destroy the Jews, and destroy everybody, that's you and I, who believes in Jesus. Okay, now just for the record, Israel is about the size of New Jersey. If you overlap New Jersey on top of Israel, virtually the exact same square footage or square miles. So when you are listening to the propaganda, Palestine during the time of David, did you see how that's phrased? In the time of David, it was Israel. It says here, Encyclopedia Britannica, it says, clear as day, they are lying to everybody who looks this up. So if you decide to do your own research, they scrub the truth and they replace it immediately with propaganda and lies, both of which are the same, of course. But that's what they're doing. And everybody who's in college, there's a mind virus that's infesting all of them, and literally everything is upside down. No matter, they have the mindset, what Israel does, no matter what it is, feed the poor, give free water, electricity, and all utilities to the Gaza Strip, where not a single Jew lives. No matter what Israel does, it's evil. And no matter what the satanic, demonic terrorists do, they're freedom fighters. They have a right. So be aware, everything is wrong. Don't believe a single narrative. As soon as, in other words, I don't want to make any comments about the last pandemic we had, but I'll just use that as an analogy. When every news channel is singing the exact same song, please know they're lying to you.